What is Zoom Node? You're going to learn what Zoom Node is, and then you're going to learn why almost every single large enterprise probably needs it. I know this might be shocking, but I could feel my voice going. I'm not sure why it's going. Probably because I talk all day long, every day. Maybe that's the reason, but that's nothing new, so I'm not sure why today it decided to get a little raspy. Maybe my voice is trying to say, hey, maybe you should get into radio, do my DJ, smooth jazz voice. Probably not. So what's Zoom Node, and why is it important to you if you're in the large enterprise space? This probably isn't going to be important to you if you're small market or even mid-market. This only really applies for large enterprises, and here's why. Remember 3 years ago when we all went home? Remember that? We all took our laptops and our phones and we went home. First of all, that's a lie. No one took their phone. They just took their laptop. And we went home to our gig internets, and we went home to webinars and meetings, and we used our home network to really do all of our work. And that was great from an enterprise perspective because they didn't have to pay for any of that or administer any of that. That was done at the home side or remote side. But now things have changed 3 years later. Now we're coming back into the office. And all those gig internet pipes that you used at home to do all your work, all of a sudden, all that internet bandwidth is now at the corporate office or headquarters. And now instead of 0 streams at the home office, you have thousands of streams. So network capacity was not planned for 3 years ago. And how do you solve that other than just dumping loads and loads and loads of network capacity at the headquarters? What if there's a better way? What if Zoom has figured out a better way? That's what Zoom Node is. Most of the meetings that people have are actually internal. I'm not saying that they're not external meetings. Of course there are, with partners and vendors and customers. But most of your collaboration and communication are happening inside of your company. Therefore, what if you could bring Zoom into your data center? What if all that media that typically would go to the Zoom cloud or the internet all of a sudden stayed in your infrastructure, allowing you to free up bandwidth constraints at an egress-ingress point from the edge? By the edge, I mean the internet. What if you could have phone survivability inside of your corporate headquarters? Inside of your data center? What if you could bring webinars and meetings, core communication functionalities inside of your data center, never having to really leave the data center? We can do that and more with the new functionality called Zoom Node that Zoom just developed. And instead of listening to me talk about this at a high level, let's invite an expert from the Distinguished Architects team here at Zoom to tell you exactly what Zoom Node is. I always am excited to have guests on my show, and I always invite guests that are way smarter than me. And in tradition, I've invited Mike White from our Distinguished Architect team, and I can't wait to hear what Mike's going to talk about. Mike, welcome to the show, buddy.
All right, thanks, Patrick. I'm super excited to be with you today and to talk about a product that we've recently released. So Zoom Node's exciting to me because I've spent a lot of time in the hybrid collaboration space for years, maybe even decades. And one of the things that our customers came to us and wanted to do was to run some of our cloud components on-prem, right, in a hybrid model. So Zoom Node is a platform that we've developed to deliver hybrid services into a customer's network.
Well, this sounds like, back in the day, we used to be in data centers all the time, you and I, probably deploying servers upon servers in some customer's data center. And then this revolutionary thing called the cloud came along, and then all our services that we had spent decades learning were no longer needed because we pushed all those servers into Azure, AWS, Oracle, Google, whatever it might be, and all those services ran great. And when we and the pandemic hit, that was fine. We had a disparate workforce and a hybrid workforce, but all of a sudden, when we started going back to the office, all those multiple streams into Google and AWS and Azure all of a sudden are coming back to the office, right? And Microsoft Teams and even most of our competitors don't have a solution for this. And with Zoom being Zoom, we're innovating in this space and creating Zoom Node for that reason.
Yep, exactly. I think as I look back as we started this project to build the Zoom Node platform, Zoom's had hybrid and on-prem offerings for years. Right, we've had things like Meeting Connector and Recording Connector, our Video Room Connector, which would let your traditional setup in the H323 video endpoints call into a video meeting, as well as middleware to connect, like for us to help manage a traditional on-prem video endpoint. So and integrate calendars with those endpoints. So Zoom's offered this software for some time. And the challenge with a lot of these different pieces of software was they were deployed and managed very differently. Some of them would install on Windows. Others, you'd have to bring your own Linux distribution, install it. And then it was up to you as a customer to maintain the operating system underneath the software that we were running, right? So the other challenge we had was with management interfaces, right? And you're just mentioning how legacy software is. You think about how I would have bookmarks for tens, if not hundreds of different servers where I'd have to go straight to the IP address or the host name of the server. And the beauty of Zoom, like we experienced during the pandemic, was you'd manage it all from the cloud web admin interface. And so as we started the Zoom Node project, that was number one goal, was this has got to be very easy to deploy and very easy to operate. With that guiding framework, that was where we kicked off the project to decide what we were going to build. All those different software hybrid and on-prem software packages we offered, we said, let's figure out how to get these onto a common platform to make it a lot easier for customers to use and manage that software.
Mike, you're bringing me back to PTSD level when we used to have remote desktop manager. Remember this tool? And we used to have like 50 servers on the left navigation bar of everything we had to log into and update and fix. So I'm glad those days are behind us. That's absolutely sure. Knowing what this is, what are the benefits for an enterprise, right? And I assume that's the target market of Zoom. I can imagine maybe a small to medium-sized business needs some sort of architecture or infrastructure on-prem anymore. So, Mike, what are some of the benefits for an enterprise of deploying Zoom Node?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. I think one of the, as I mentioned a moment ago, one of the goals was to have this manage and operate like you're used to with the Zoom cloud already, right? So the simplicity, and we want to bring customer happiness to operating our hybrid solutions. And so we made sure that this was completely cloud managed. So even though we're going to have hybrid and on-prem components that would live inside your data center, we're going to make sure that those outside of the initial bootstrap, when I put an IP address on it and register it up to our cloud, we're going to make sure that all the management after that will be done through our cloud console. So that makes it much easier to operate than like we were talking about, right? The legacy software where we were having to connect up to a server and connect it to that server. And I don't know how many 8-hour plus upgrades I did on software back in the day, right? All night long when you're upgrading a handful of servers. The beauty of this, right, is we're gonna handle all of the management and the upgrades and troubleshooting. All that is managed through our cloud portal. So you're not going directly to a server anymore. The other thing that we did was we wanted to make sure that by building this Zoom Node platform, it would allow customers to decide which modules or services that they would want to run on the Zoom Node. So out of the box, the Zoom Node can support up to 4 different modules. Those can be meetings modules or phone survivability modules, a number of other upcoming modules that we've got coming. But the idea was just to make it modular so that you could decide what components you want to run on your premise. It might make sense to have phone survivability, but not meetings run on-prem, right? So the beauty of it is flexible. And then I will say, I mentioned that the migration from the customer having to provide their own OS, like in some cases, some of our software would install as a MSI into Windows, we decided we were going to go with more of the hardened appliance model, where we're providing the OS and you're not having to deal with OS maintenance and patching. Zoom handles all that on your behalf. And the customers do have the ability to control when those upgrades happen. But the idea is to take that, so that you take that off your plate of having to understand how to update a Linux distribution packages that run on that. And I guess the last thing I would mention is single pane of glass, right? We want to make it so that your experience administering and managing your Zoom account for all your users is in one place. And so that's exactly what we did. I mentioned that before, but we made sure that all the troubleshooting, the debugging, we even have the ability now to relay your logs up to our cloud. So you don't have to go through if there was a problem and you were working with Zoom support, you wouldn't have to figure out how to get the logs off the box and zip them up and send them through email or whatever to Zoom. We handle that where you can just literally push a button and push your logs up. So lots of innovation in the area of making it super easy to manage an on-prem or hybrid solution from a cloud interface.
I heard a rumor that this is a cloud-based installation, that you literally just deploy a VM, you register with the cloud, and you're ready to go. Is that true?
That is true. This is one of the coolest things that we did. And that was, we decided, you live in the Zoom admin portal, right, for the most part when you're administrating a system. And so we wanted to make it as easy as I want to deploy a Zoom node. So I would hit add node. You'd be able to download the appropriate format virtual machine. So whether that's like a VMware ESX OVA, or if you're using KVM or other KVM compatible hypervisors, we'll give you the illustriously named QCOW2 format virtual machine. That's what KVM uses. I don't know why that's called QCOW2, but we do have options for KVM. and for ESX. So once you have the OVA, right, then all you do is deploy it into your virtual infrastructure, and you generate a registration code. Our site will give you a registration code that you paste into the actual VM, and now it's registered up to our cloud. So it will auto update if it has any updates that need to be done. It'll get itself all ready, and then you simply start deploying modules on it. You say, I want phone survivability, boom, it'll push down the phone survivability module. I want on-prem meetings, and I want on-prem meeting recording, boom, boom, those modules push down. So it's super slick in terms of once it's registered, getting it registered to the cloud is this nice registration code, and then you do the rest of the deployment from the cloud.
First of all, that sounds amazing. Second question I have is where is Zoom Node available?
Oh, excellent question. That is worldwide. So the beauty of our rollout is we were able to roll out worldwide. So customers in any location are welcome to take advantage of that.
So you mentioned modules. This leads me to a question, and just because I'm ignorant, and that's why I invited you, Mike, to tell me all this stuff. What modules are available today inside of Zoom Node?
Also fantastic question. So we have out shipping, or GA, I guess, 4 modules. So the first one came out a number of months ago, and that's our phone survivability module. You'll see the acronym ZPLS, or Zoom Phone Local Survivability. You'll see that mentioned quite a bit on our site. And so essentially, Zoom Phone Survivability helps me keep my local phones running at a location during an internet or service outage. So I think one of our early interested verticals were healthcare, right? So they deployed Zoom Phone, and because it's so easy to deploy versus traditional solutions, they deployed Zoom Phone. And then the concern is, how do I survive? How do we keep this thing running if the cloud goes down, or if our access to the cloud goes down? Mm-hmm. So in working with them, the first thing we delivered was extension to extension dialing, so I can still call others within the site or organization. And now we've also bolted on SBC. If I have a local SBC available, mm-hmm. I can use that so I can maintain PSTN connectivity, right, whether that's outbound 911 or a limit method to come back in. We've also delivered a couple of different meetings solutions. I mentioned earlier, there's a solution we have called Meeting Connector and Recording Connector. They're not very well named, in my opinion. It's Meeting Connector is essentially a version of Zoom's meeting infrastructure running inside your network. Recording Connector is an adjacent product that lets you directly record those meetings. So we have a number of customers, right, that are concerned about data residency. Where is that data living? So the Meeting Connector, Recording Connector modules, that was built so that a customer could deploy this in their data center, and if they want to allow access in, they would open their firewall into it. But it's a solution where the data we know the data and meeting media are all living inside the customer's.
Okay, so I'm a CIO, right? I'm on a jet, and I see an advertisement for Zoom Node, right? And why do I want Zoom Node and a hybrid solution for my environment?
Yeah, no, that's again excellent questions. As we thought about as we were building this, right? We thought we worked with several of our large customers to see what their concerns and challenges were with the existing software that we had on the market, as well as what additional features they were looking at to have put into this new platform. And so I think the primary feedback that we got back was concern about bandwidth, right? Because we were in the pandemic, and we're coming out of it, I guess I should say, 18 months or so ago. We're starting to come out of it, and return to office is on everyone's minds. As we're coming back to the office from COVID, we've gotten used to doing webinars. I know I did it at home when we were all working from home and not in the office at all, where the leadership team from our company would give us updates I think it was probably every 2 weeks or so. They give us an update about what's going on in the company. And I always found those webinars super useful to stay in contact. As the pandemic starts winding down, we start anticipating return to office, and people were already used to those webinars and enjoying the webinars. Many of the customers I talked to, there was no desire to quit doing webinars. These large touch points with employees. And so lots of customers came to us and said, hey, we're concerned about when we send back several thousand employees into the office and still do large scale webinars, are we going to have the capacity to handle a webinar? So as part of that, concern, that's where we went and started working on a module that we call the Meetings Hybrid module. And so, it sounds weird, but Zoom Meetings Hybrid. And the idea, right, is to take that piece of our cloud, part of the meeting components of our cloud, and bring those down into the customer's network. That way, when if I've got a piece of our cloud in the network, the media can be redistributed inside the network. And so the idea now is the only media that needs to traverse out to the internet would be media that we'll receive the media from the Zoom cloud, and then we have an MMR, we call it, or a cloud media bridge inside the customer's network that can then redistribute that media to all the people that are working inside the corporate location. That was one of the things that customers were most excited about, is knowing that they can keep doing the webinars that they've been doing to reach all the employees that are either at home or in the office, and be able to not worry about their bandwidth being consumed by all these people in the webinar. Rather than having everyone's media stream come from the cloud, now it comes from a device that's on-prem. But the beauty of it is it's all managed in our cloud and doesn't feel like an extra component. Literally, you deploy that meetings hybrid module and you ignore the thing, essentially.
It leads me to think about maybe a whole other part of it that we haven't talked about, I don't think, is I did a video a few weeks ago with Theta Lake, one of our security and compliance partners, but that was more about data, right? Data of chats, data of files, data of recordings. What I'm thinking about now is maybe security and compliance when it comes to network and real-time media. Could this be a part of that too?
100%. So one of the big asks from a lot of our large customers was a concern about security. So I mentioned, that use case where as I join a Zoom meeting from my computer, I'm going to go talk to components that are across the internet in the Zoom cloud. And so some of these large customers expressed a real interest to not have computers just talk directly out to the internet. I remember my background is a lot of networking for years. And I remember the first time I was on a call with one of the customers, they said, we don't allow our computers to talk to the internet at all. I'm like, okay. And then they said, we don't have a default route out to the internet. Our default route doesn't leave our network. And I'm like, oh, wow, that's a pretty cool idea. I mean, as crazy as that is, for how counterintuitive to networking that is, their implementation would take that data and figure out what was talking to out to the internet. So as part of their requirements to not have computers, not even the ability to talk out to the internet, they need edge devices. So an edge gateway is probably not a great term, but an edge device that lets the traffic either get proxied or relayed out. And that's where the hybrid meetings module comes into play as well, because think about that. Now my computers, I can have no default route out of my network, but Zoom's cloud is in my network. So now my computers can talk to this. And if an external person joins the meeting from another company or one of our users from home, they talk to the cloud. Then the only communication is from our Zoom Node meetings hybrid module out to the internet. And so now I've taken away that need to have my computers talk. So that was, I think, one of the most surprising things to me, but also one of the coolest things that we were able to deliver with Zoom Node.
So full disclosure, I let everybody know, Mike and I used to be on the same distinguished architect team, and I've known about Zoom Node for a number of months, if not years, before all of you found out about Zoom Node. And I was really excited when this went GA. And so, Mike, I knew you were the right guy for this because you were way smarter and you were developing this way before any of us even knew what it is. So I appreciate your time and really thank you again. And always nice talking to you.
Absolutely. It's an honor to come talk to you. And I'm very excited, and I'm excited to talk about customers that are interested in Zoom Node directly when the time comes.
Absolutely. All right. Have a great day, buddy. So if you like today's video, hit the subscribe button. Hope you learned something. Have a great day.